Good evening. This board meeting is hereby called to order. Our August the 20th, 2024 Board of Aldermen meeting. All participants and elected officials, please remember that this is live streamed and recorded on the city's YouTube channel. It'll be available for playback as well. I'd like to ask at this time if Alderwoman Hamilton would lead us in our invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, which I will lead. Please stand.
Please join me in prayer. Dear Father in heaven, we again thank you for a time that we can gather and take care of the business of the city. We thank you, Father, for the many prayers that we have offered up to you and that we've received positive answers from you, dear God. We pray tonight, dear Lord, that we can turn our prayers into thanksgiving as we thank you for giving us your Son, dear Lord, the greatest gift of all. Dear Lord, we ask you as we go into this meeting to guide the decisions made, guide our mayor as he leads the meeting. This we ask in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Stewart, if you would, please conduct roll call.
Aldridge. Here. Collins.
Here.
Dickerson.
Here.
Earhart.
Here.
Hamilton.
Here.
Henderson. Here. Wallace.
Here.
Thank you. Everyone's present, so obviously a quorum is established. Have two different sets of minutes before your board. The first one I ask you to look over, I'm sure you already have, the August the 6th regular Board of Aldermen meeting. Any questions on those minutes or any motions?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Alderman at Large Collins. Is there a second? Second, Alderwoman Henderson. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Second set of minutes is our special call meeting where we discussed a special call, publicly noticed meeting to discuss the budget and to finalize it or get it in final form. We held that meeting on August the 13th. Any questions on those minutes or any motions? Motion to approve by Mr. Wallace. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Hamilton. Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed?
Abstain.
One abstain. Mr. Earhart was scheduled out that meeting. Motion carries with one abstained vote. Mayor's updates for your board. Very small update today. Just a couple of items. Our Mayor's Youth Council we're taking applications again. At this time, we have 20 students in our high schools in the area that would like to be on the Mayor's Council. There's still time for others to get the nominations in. It's a process. It requires the students do some things, the school do some things, the letters of recommendation as well. But last year was a great success. Matter of fact, out of the 28 would like to repeat it. And they were juniors at the time, and now they're seniors in high school. And the curriculum's going to be different. There's going to be a different set of meetings, different presentations, so we're probably going to be open to that unless slots are needed for other individuals that hadn't been to it. So at least 20 right now would like to participate, so that's on the horizon. The Pleasant Hill Widening public meeting is set for August the 23rd at 3 p.m. That will be held at the Senior Citizen Center to get input from residents, business leaders, et cetera, who'd like to stop by and give input on that widening of Pleasant Hill. Lastly, Taylor Field, I may have sent you some stats already, but Taylor Field had a lot of activity this past week due to the FedEx St. Jude Classic. There were a ton of jets going out, a lot of praise from the captains and the crew members, rather, of those jets as far as the good job that Olive Branch Aviation did. A lot of kudos to them. When they launched after the golf tournament, there was a wide range of aircraft flying out, all different sizes to all different parts of the United States to the next golf tournament, and it was quite a sight, I understand, flying out of our airport. And again, a lot of praises from the aviation industry, the pilots that were involved in that. Any questions about Mayor's updates?
Mayor, I think you had said that the public hearing was on the 23rd. It's actually the 28th.
Thank you very much.
Wednesday, the 28th.
28th at 3 p.m., is that correct?
From 5 to 7.
Wow, I've been at the wrong meeting, wasn't I, Andy? Thank you. The 28th from 5 to 7 p.m. at the Senior Center is where the Pleasant Hill widening public meeting will take place. I understand that a public meeting was held years ago before I was in position, and the way things lined up, et cetera, then Olive Branch took a little bit of a backseat on purpose to allow Hernando to have Mackinville expanded, and now it's our turn, so to speak, to widen that to 4 lanes with a median in certain parts of it. So it'll be a very welcomed completion. It'll probably be a challenge while it takes place, as all things like that end up being, but please attend that public meeting. Anyone that's watching this or in the courtroom now, please attend the public meeting if you'd like and give us your input. Thank you, Mr. Swims. Any other questions or input? Hearing none. Following the agenda, the consent agenda, Board, you've had since Friday, I would think, items 1 through 24. Any questions on any items on the consent agenda? Hearing none, any motions to approve the consent agenda as is?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Earhart, motion. Second, Ms. Hamilton. Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. Following the agenda, Planning Commission, new business. This is consideration of application for a preliminary plat for Center Hill Farm subdivision submitted by Nick Croonan of Civil Link LLC on behalf of property owner Johnny McBride, member of the Center Hill Farms LLC, property owner. The request is to subdivide 263.13 plus or minus acres into 604 residential lots and 24 common open spaces. The subject property is zoned PUD, Planned Unit Development District, located on the west side of Center Hill Road, approximately 700 feet north of Valley Oaks Drive East and about 1,800 feet south of Highway 302 and Center Hill Road intersection. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, Mayor. Alderman, before you is a request to consider the preliminary development plan for plat for Center Hill Farms subdivision. This project or this particular subdivision, from the image you have before you, lies southwest of Highway 302. Just if you get to the intersection of Highway 302 and Cedar Hill Road and you just go down, it will lie to the west, just before you get to Valley Oaks subdivision. The preliminary plan, layout, and the project text were both approved by the DeSoto County Board of Supervisors on September 8, 1998. So this layout you have in front of you with the permitted uses, all the uses in there were restricted to single-family residential. The total of 667 lots, with a total of 667 lots, a density of 2.53 dwelling units per acre. All of these was approved already by the DeSoto County Board of Supervisors back in 1998. What we have in front of us today is essentially the approval of the preliminary subdivision plat, which would then authorize the city engineer to approve subdivision construction plans, basically plans for roads, water, sewer, for the developer to go out and build the subdivision. On your next slide, this is the approved master plan as it were approved back in 1998. The areas shown there in blue, those are essentially areas that were preliminarily designated for stormwater management. The other, you have a number of common open spaces that were approved in the subdivision. If you look at the areas shown there in yellow, there are a number of alleys at the back of multiple lots to the north. So that particular area has smaller lots, and the preliminary development plan required that they should be rear loaded and accessed through those alleys. On your next slide, The developer has had to make a change in this preliminary development plat precisely because of the county's decision to extend Nay Road from Hacks Cross Road to the west, across this property at its southern edge, up to Center Hill Road. So that would be extended. Nay Road is to be extended to Center Hill Road. With that extension, the lots that you had to the south of this property, all of those lots basically where the road is going to be are going to be taken out. The applicant has therefore, the developer has had to redesign the southern part of the subdivision as you see on your next slide. So the area shown there, that is the area that he has had to design to basically do one main thing, to provide a connection of that road down to what would be the new Nay Road. So at the time when this preliminary development plan was approved, there was no Nay Road, there was no plan for that extension, it was not provided. Now that Nay Road is going to be extended, the developer has had to revise or make a few changes to that southern area to provide for that extension. The developer proposes to develop this subdivision in 11 phases. With that change at the south end of the property, the number of lots that the developer is proposing has reduced from 667 that was approved by the county in 98 to 604. So the developer is actually losing over 63 lots in order to do that. So I did mention he's proposing to develop this subdivision in 11 phases. A key element that comes into play with regard to this phase development has to do with the availability of sewer. The city engineer has evaluated and communicated with the developer that this particular subdivision will discharge into Brabham. The sewer plant at Brabham does not have the capacity to take in 604 lots. It does not have that capacity. What it has capacity for is 150 lots. As such, the developer has divided this into phases such that phase 1 of the subdivision will have 88 lots. That is the section that will be the phase that is closest, that will have access on Center Hill Road. So it will have 88 lots. Phase 2, just directly beside it to the west where it is written 2-60, that will be phase 2, it will have 60 lots. So those two, phase 1 and phase 2 put together will basically bring you up to about that 150 lots. Before the developer can move forward beyond 150 lots, it will require that they build an existing or a new sewer plant in the city that can take care of the lots that he will be creating beyond that point. So there is an approval condition in that planning commission did recommend to address that particular issue. The next slide shows what was approved with respect to lot sizes in this area that is being modified. In the image to the left, you have the area designated there in green, kind of marked out in green. It had area 1, the minimum lot size there was 40,000 square feet, area 3, 20,000 square feet, area 4, 15,000 square feet, and area 7, 12,000 square feet. So the lots in that area range in size from a minimum of 12,000 square feet to 40,000 square feet. What the developer is proposing from the modification that he has made, the minimum lot size will be 15,000 square feet, and the largest lot size will be 42,265 square feet. So in that particular area, what he is proposing, he has actually increased the minimum lot size. So what was approved by the county, the minimum lot size there was 12,000 square feet. What he is proposing, a minimum lot size will be 15,000 square feet. On the next slide, as I did mention, you have those alleys to the north. All of those alleys will have to be provided, and they are actually included in this preliminary plat for your approval. The next slide shows the construction of these alleys. A problem we have had in the city has been the standards to which these alleys should be constructed because of the situation we have like in Stonecrest, where these alleys don't last. There is significant liability to the HOA. And the board basically set a standard for the construction of these alleys in the Villages at South Branch subdivision, where you required that they shouldn't be V or U shape that allows water, to get to the middle of the alleys, chop it off. All the water has to flow to the side of the alleys. And it should be constructed of the same thickness as the local public streets, basically. That is what you have in front of you is the Villages at South Branch construction plans. So everybody in the city is building to that standard, and the recommendation of the city engineer is that the alleys in this subdivision should also be constructed to this standard. Your next slide shows what was approved in the project text and the preliminary development plan with regard to Center Hill Road. The developer was required by the county to dedicate a 40-foot right-of-way from the center line of Center Hill Road, as shown on plate 3 before you. That included the construction of a sidewalk, curb and gutter on Center Hill Road, and a fence. Currently, if you look at the picture you have, or the map that you have in front of you, the area to the south in front of Valley Oaks subdivision has a 53-foot right-of-way from center line. So that is what that subdivision was required to dedicate in order to provide, 2-lane road cross-section, ditch, and a curb and gutter, open ditch with curb and gutter for future extension. The existing right-of-way in front of this property is only 40 feet. It's not up to 53 feet. The consideration, or the plat that was considered by the Planning Commission, included a requirement that the developer dedicate 53 feet right-of-way to basically match what you have in Valley Oaks to the south. However, when this property was annexed into the city, the blue line, the line shown there in blue, that is the city limit. So if this developer were to dedicate 53 feet right-of-way, a portion of the right-of-way will be inside the city limit and a portion will be outside. That is a situation that needs to be avoided. We'll basically have a road split into two with about 13 feet of it being in the city and the rest being outside of the city limits. To address that particular scenario, the recommendation before you is that the 40 feet right-of-way that was required in the preliminary development plan and which is currently shown here should be maintained, and then the developer will dedicate 13 feet of a drainage and utility easement. That drainage easement, 13 feet, will basically be for the ditch, for the open ditch to manage for stormwater management on the rear of those lots. That will be maintained by the property owner since it's basically an easement. It's part of the real estate of those particular lots. So a change is therefore, as you see on the note at the bottom, we'll strike out that requirement for 53 feet right-of-way dedication and rather require that the developer dedicate 13 feet drainage and utility easement at final plat, not at preliminary plat. Easements are not created through preliminary plats. These will be at the final plat approval, where that easement will have to be shown. But it's necessary to have these in the records now so that when they do the construction plans, it is taken care of on the construction plans. With the requirement for a ditch, the curb and the ditch, a sidewalk is no longer necessary. And there are no sidewalks along Center Hill Road. So if this developer were to go out there and build that sidewalk, it would be a sidewalk to nowhere, basically. So the recommendation will be that the sidewalk requirement be waived. Your next slide shows the plat that was considered by the Planning Commission. There are two elements here that I wish to call attention to. The first is where you have those 3 lots adjoining Valley Oaks subdivision to the south. There are property owners, of course, within Valley Oaks that have certain recreational facilities quite close to the property line. And the developer has worked with them, basically at his discretion, with respect to the grading of that particular area. If you have to bring down the trees and grade it, and you have a swimming pool that is barely 7 feet from the property line, you may have roots of those trees under that swimming pool. If you are not careful, it's going to create a lot of destruction on the adjoining property. So the developer has worked with that property owner to relocate those 3 lots to a different area and leave that as a common open space. You will see that on your next slide. The second element, where you have the star, thank you, Jason. Where you have that star, there was an email that I think one of the residents in the Valley Oaks did send around, indicating or calling attention to a possible side distance problem for this particular street where you have that star intersecting with Highland Lake. The city engineer went out, took a look at it, and determined that yes, there is a side distance problem if that street intersects with Cedar Hill Road at that particular location. The best location will be for the street to be moved to the north, to the high point. That's where you have the furthest visibility on both sides of the road. Consequently, the applicant has revised this plat. So the plat to the right, that is a revised plat for Board of Aldermen's approval tonight. That plat includes the relocation, or that particular road has been moved to the north. So it's not at the top of the hill. From there, you can see over 500 feet in both directions. That eliminates the side distance problem. With that design, the road coming down, if you enter the subdivision from that particular location where you have the star, you have over 1,000 feet of a long street going down. That can become a speedway throughout that subdivision. As such, it may be necessary to put traffic calming mechanisms such as roundabouts shown there in those blue circles in this subdivision. A condition has therefore been added to what the Planning Commission recommended regarding these particular calming mechanisms. Nair Road will also, this particular subdivision with this redesign, there will also be connection to Nair Road to the south. So the applicant or the developer will be already entitled to 2 roads connecting to Nair Road. So those 2 roads are maintained. They are now at safe locations. And then you will have a connection to Nair Road, which will be to the south, to disperse traffic within this particular subdivision. The next slide shows a concern. I added this particular slide because in that particular email there was an issue regarding easements that one of the residents raised, asking for even easement, over 100 feet easement could be dedicated and the Cedar Hill Farms a subdivision. That is controlled in the zoning, in the Act of Zoning. So in 98, when the county approved the preliminary development plan, there was no requirement for that easement. So on their project text, preliminary development plan, it had no requirement for the easement. Of course, you had no Cedar Hill Road extension, and also Valley Oaks did not exist, because Valley Oaks was approved after Cedar Hill, I think that was 2005 or 2006, after Cedar Hill Farms was already approved. It would appear that the developer of Valley Oaks took that into consideration. And so what he put in the subdivision plat for Valley Oaks was a requirement for an undisturbed area to the north. So if you look at all that hatch area, that is over 30 to 40 feet that was supposed to remain undisturbed, non-buildable in Valley Oaks subdivision. It's unfortunate that it appears today some of the homeowners have taken down their own buffer, if I can put it that way. So any buffer within Cedar Hill Farms will really be at the discretion of the developer, because it's not, what we have here is a preliminary plat and not a zoning act. This is, the city is not approving a preliminary development layout plan. The next slide is the recommendation of the Planning Commission and amendments thereto. At its meeting on August 13, the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of this preliminary plat subject to a number of conditions. Condition number 1 there being, except as provided in these approval conditions, all stipulations of the project text for Senna Hill Farms PD are maintained. What are some of these exceptions or modifications? The next slide, please. Condition number 6 specifies that the development of the subdivision beyond the first 150 lots shall be subject to the availability of sufficient sewer treatment capacity in an appropriate plant as shall be determined by the city engineer. So that is intended to take care of that 150 lots, the capacity problem that we have in Brabant as far as the sewer plant is concerned. And the developer is okay with that restriction. The developer is okay with that restriction. The next slide continues the Planning Commission recommendation. Condition number 8 had been stated there that the requirement for sidewalk construction along Senna Hill Road is waived, subject to the developer dedicating the 53 feet right-of-way that I did mention. That is, if that were dedicated, we will have this problem with part of the road being in the city and part being in the county. So that is being eliminated, proposed to be deleted from the approval conditions. The developer should rather be required to dedicate at final plat a 13-feet drainage and utility easement along Senna Hill Road. The developer, however, shall be responsible for widening Senna Hill Road with curb and gutter in the street frontage of the property to such street section as shall be determined by the city engineer. Condition number 9, the 20-feet wide landscape area along Senna Hill Road as depicted in plate 3, which I had shown of the project text, is hereby reduced to at least 7 feet and shall contain a fence and a row of trees as shown in this plate. So that was, in the project text, it was 20 feet. This particular condition would allow it to be reduced to 7 feet in order to give room for the dedication of that 13 feet for the drainage improvements on Senna Hill. Condition number 10, that addresses the alley issue or the alley construction standard. The pavement schedule of any alley in the subdivision shall consist of 8-inch soil cement, 3-inch asphalt surface. It shall have a pavement width of at least 18 feet, 2 feet slope in only one direction. A V or U-shaped design of any of the alley is prohibited. So that is intended to take care of the design standard for alleys. Condition number 11 and number 12 were not in the Planning Commission. Condition number 11 was actually added by the Planning Commission. Number 12 was not. Condition number 11 was added by the Planning Commission to the staff report. Namely, that the same street frontage landscape buffer improvements required along Senna Hill Road are required along Nay Road. So at the time when this preliminary plan was approved, there was no Nay Road. This condition number 11 is basically saying the same plate number 3, which they will have to construct along Nay Road with a fence and the trees, that should also be constructed. The developer should also install a fence and those trees along Nay Road. Lastly, traffic calming designs, this is an addition. This particular number 12 was not considered by the Planning Commission. Is based on the change or the movement of that road to the north for side distance reasons. Traffic calming designs, which may include roundabouts, shall be provided in the subdivision as determined necessary by the city engineer. And that concludes staff's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Song. Board, just want to clarify 2 items. One, Mr. Swims, 150 lots is what this has been restricted to until sewer capacity is increased, which is being worked on. However, we are not at sewer capacity just because of 150 lots. Is that correct?
That is correct. We've got a number of different developments that are kind of competing for sewer. Brayborn does have capacity limits that we're going to achieve. We're not there yet. This is the lagoon we're talking about at the back of Brayborn subdivision. City's intending or working toward getting the cold water treatment plant over off of Center Hill Road. We've got a definitive timeline on it, so we're looking at this annually just to see how progress is being made with the development and with the treatment plant that's planned. So we've
Thank
got a
you.
plan to keep development going
I
as
just-
far as I can tell.
Thank you. I just didn't want to send the message that we're out of sewer capacity, because we're definitely not. We're trying to be conservative and spread the joy, so to speak, among the other developments that may or may not be approved, and that's being worked on, the Center Hill Treatment Facility or plant, and also other water and sewer expansion we're putting in over the next 2 or 3 years on the east side of the county that will basically ensure growth of Olive Branch for the next 2 decades. And Mr. Dye, I know that it was stated that 1998, this plat was approved by the DeSoto County before it was annexed into the city of Olive Branch. Valley Oaks approved in 2006. By state law and by precedence, cities are required to bring these properties in. Once they come in, they're required to bring them in with the same zoning that they have prior to coming in to the city of Olive Branch, correct?
That is correct. When property is annexed by a municipality, it comes into the municipality as zoned by the county. So for this particular development, the city inherited, if you will, the 1998 zoning approval approved by DeSoto County.
Okay.
So that is the zoning that's been in place for the last 26 years, and it's the effective zoning as of today.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Dye. Board, any questions regarding the presentation? Any
Okay.
questions of staff?
I got a couple quick questions, I think. This being more than likely gonna approve, because it's already approved from the county. On the, alleyways, who maintains those after they go to public streets? Does the city maintain the alleyway as well, or they maintain just the public street portion?
No, alleyways will be privately owned by an HOA typically in the subdivision. So, but we do have a good standard with this as far as how the roads would be built. But they will be privately owned.
All right, second question, the 53-foot right-of-way that I guess the planning commission put on here, and half of it was in the county, I suppose. Being that Center Hill is a long winding road, it's kind of hilly. You had 600 and something more homes to where I think there's several hundred that's out there being built. Could we not use part of that 53-foot this is in the city to use it as an ingress, egress into that subdivision, so people don't run right up on a car trying to turn right into that subdivision?
Mr. Swims, can I, not from an engineering perspective, but from the legal description perspective,
Right.
let me mention
Okay.
something. When the city annexed this particular property recently, the court-awarded area gave the city the area to the western edge of the Center Hill Road right-of-way. So the city did not annex adjacent to this particular property. The city did not receive in the annexation any portion of the
Of
public
this
road adjacent to the Center Hill Farms property. The roadway area, the public right-of-way area is still unincorporated. The court awarded the city up to the western right-of-way of Center Hill Road. That's to prevent a situation where you would be in the city at Highway 302, then in the county for a little ways, then back in the city, then back in the county. So rather, to avoid that hopscotch, so to speak, the court oftentimes will modify the legal description to eliminate the annexation area from the road right-of-way. Since this is a preliminary plat and not a final plat, what I would suggest is that if the board were to approve this, that you would approve it subject to the revised condition 8 that the planning staff has prepared, and that between the preliminary and final plat, I would work with engineering, planning, and the developer to address, and the county, to address road right-of-way issues and the width of that right-of-way adjacent to this development.
Can we put that in there, or just leave it like it is?
My recommendation is if the board were to approve it, to approve the condition 8 as is shown on your screen. And just know that I would be working with planning, engineering, the developer, and the county to resolve any anomalies that exist with respect to this right-of-way by virtue of the way that it was awarded in the annexation trial.
Okay, that's all I had, Mayor.
Thank you. Any other questions? No, sir, not at this time. I'll come back to you in a moment, I promise. Any other questions from the board?
Mr. Asante, I have one question. If you can go back on our slides to the plat itself with the minimum square foot lots on section 1 through 7. There we go. Based as I see this, all lot sizes, the minimum will be 15,000 square feet, even in area 11 where all the alleyways are. Is that correct?
No, sir.
So what are our minimum square foot sizes in the lots where we have the alleyways? I looked through.
Get your mic on, Hassan. Get your mic on.
Thank you, sir. That is area 11, yeah.
And this would also apply to area 13. Ms. Hamilton showed me the chart I couldn't find. I guess my question is, so area 11 and area 13 show that they will have 6,000 square foot minimum lots, or possibly could have that. And if I'm not mistaken, we're working on some subdivision requirements, particularly for PUDs, that there would be no more than 20% of the total subdivision lots under 7,200 square feet. Am I correct in that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Since this was already approved in the county as a PUD, we do have jurisdiction on determining the lot sizes still. Is that correct?
No, sir, unfortunately. Area 11, yes. Area 11, the minimum lot size there is 6,000 to 8,000, 6,000 to 8,000.
Okay.
And then area 13, the minimum lot size there is 6,000.
Okay.
The lot sizes in those areas were set by the county when the project text was approved. So that is the zoning element that we inherited from the county, as
Right.
Brian was alluding to. We do not, in the preliminary plat, have the authority to change those particular lot sizes. The developer can, at their discretion, make some, increase them if he wanted to.
Right.
But we do not have the discretion at this time
Okay.
to
Because I
require
know
that
we
those
had
be
that
increased.
issue and discussion with Kirk Farms, that the developer was very good in working with us on that.
Yeah, and
That was a
Kirk
zoning
Farm, we
change.
were approving the
Zoning
preliminary
change.
development
Zoning
plan.
change, that's right.
Right, and I think to Song's point, that particular procedure was different than what is on the board's agenda tonight. When the board was considering Kirk Farms, it was actually considering the development ordinance for that particular property on that night. And so that was the
Right.
opportunity where the jurisdiction existed to adjust those lot sizes. Tonight, what's before the board is a preliminary plat that's been presented and prepared in reliance on the zoning that's been in place for 26 years.
Right.
And so procedurally and jurisdictionally, the board's in a different footing tonight than it has been in the past with other projects.
Okay. Then that clarifies my question. Thank you.
However, it doesn't prevent the landowner developer from working with the residents that may be here tonight to speak out. That would be, and it's already been done to a wide margin, very generously, but that doesn't prevent him, the landowner, from doing that if he wishes to. And I encourage discussions. I'm gonna hear you out in a moment, but I'd encourage discussions a little bit later on that. Any other questions from the board?
I do have some questions for, like, clarification. There are a lot of open spaces that are pointed out. Are any of those going to be designed for parks? I heard you mention the dog park. Are any of the other areas, or are they just common open spaces?
Is the applicant here?
Yes, it's
I was looking for Mr. Croonan. I see his associates are here. Whoever addresses the board tonight, if you remember, there's some blue cards on the table between me and the first row. If you'll complete that card, name and address, and give them to the clerk to your left, my right, whenever you're completed. And then when you come forward to speak, just give us your name and address so the clerk can capture that.
Yes. Chase Dabbs with Civil Link, 5779 Getwell Road. Johnny McBride, 4406 Davis Road with Center Hill Farms. The common open spaces will be a park area. They won't have a playground for liability reasons on the HOA, but they will be an open park area. Some of the common open space is also dedicated for, I think 50% can be counted as common open space for retention, but there's a lot of open area, and all of it will have sidewalks around it so that people can walk in there and so forth.
Would they have walking trails or just?
I think it's on last at the planning commission, there's over 6 miles. I think he had a statistic of how many miles of sidewalk were gonna be within this subdivision, but there's no, actually dedicated walking trail, so to speak. But there are sidewalks on both sides of the road throughout the entire subdivision, except in the alleyways.
Okay. I may have just missed this. Is there a fence around the subdivision, or is it just the greenery landscape type?
So there will be a fence along Center Hill Road, and there will be a fence along Nail Road. And then we have talked about this week, and we're gonna relay that tonight, that around Valley Oaks, we would also agree to have a privacy fence along the southern border of our property and the western, I guess it'd be the western border that surrounds Valley Oaks as well.
Is that?
That's
Did I
generous
read
because
that?
it's not required, so.
Like would that be is that just on the entrance that's gonna have the brick columns? You'll have a sign with, that's not gonna be around the whole place?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. It will be on 2 sides of it. It will be on the Center Hill Road side and on the Nail Road side. And then as well, we're agreeing to a privacy fence along Valley Oaks that will be part of the lot that are built back up to that.
Okay, I think Asal answers my other questions in his report.
And Mr. McBride, I'll kind of readdress my question. You certainly, obviously don't have to do this, just respectfully maybe consider it if you can. We've looked at our PUDs in order to keep what we consider, and I'm not a developer, so please understand that, but a consistent balance of lot sizes to limit subdivisions to no more than 20% of lots under 7,200 square feet. I noticed there was an area of 6,000 to 8,000 and one of 6,000. I did not see a lot count, but if you might study that and get with planning to see if we're in that 120 lot range, which is 20%, it would just be greatly appreciated, and that's why I brought that question up.
So I don't know the exact percentage right now as far as what it is. I do know that when we acquired this property or started, it went from 667 lots now down to 604 lots, which is a huge impact on the property as a whole. But in doing that, a lot of the lots that were at the bare minimum of 6,000, I think, have gotten a little bit bigger just in the shape of the project and actually laying it in there. But we will look at that as we're going through final plats.
I appreciate that.
We can work with planning.
Yeah, just that 20% area, give or take a little bit. Thank you.
Hey, the picture is up right now. I think we added some roundabouts in there, did we not? A couple roundabouts?
Yes, sir.
I know the rest of the subdivision, like Gil's talking about, doesn't show them, but y'all know that would be addressed later on, I guess, as traffic, 'cause 600 houses is a lot of cars going through the neighborhood.
That's right.
Yes.
It'll be shown on our construction plans once we submit to the city. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah, but what you proposed tonight will have, and I know a couple of roundabouts in it.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so, my daughter lives in one subdivision, and they have roundabouts in it, and it really slows the traffic down when you're trying to put this many houses in a place.
We plan to have them,
Okay,
yes, sir.
but y'all agreed to that, so that's fine. We can address that later.
Any other questions, board? Hearing none, does the applicant wish to add anything that was not covered by the staff report?
I think other than the fence around Valley Oaks, I think everything was covered in the staff report. And like I said, unfortunately, we kind of acquired this property and assumed it was zoned as it is. And, in talking with a couple of the people in Valley Oaks, we did We made a few concessions where we feel like that this subdivision would impact them, and adding the fence, the rest of the lots that are surrounding that, we feel like with the grade changes that are proposed, a fence would kind of block sight from that.
Understood. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Now, to the audience, first of all, I saw some pictures being taken, which is A-OK, but if you want this entire staff report, contact my office in the morning, provide an email address, or you come pick it up. I'll provide a copy of this staff report. It is a public document. This is not a public comment item. However, how many hands do we have that absolutely need to address the board tonight? We have one spokesperson or two? Two? I'll take two, and normally it's 3 minutes each. Come forward, sir, and give the clerk your name and address. It's your meeting as well. We want to hear you out. Because when it comes back for the final project plat approval, that's not a public meeting either. So I want you to get your information out. And also, before you leave, I'm going to ask the Civil Link or the developer to give you a number or a way to contact. There may be some salt in the shoes things possibly that can be worked out, and I think that he's shown more than willing to do that earlier this week. So this is your time. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. My name is Gene Holloway, and I'm president of the Valley Oaks HOA. And we're like you guys. You mentioned this. This PUD was approved 26 years ago. And most certainly, there's been a lot of changes in this area over the 26 years. One being our subdivision was put in there since then. And why the original plan was never implemented, I don't know. It sounds like there was financial problems. And then this gentleman over here, he said, you know, he bought it, or they bought it, and they're investors, and they have a lot of issues with it already. The issues we have with it, if this gentleman will bring up one of the slides there that shows the HOA right here, shows the creek coming through the Valley Oaks. That's true, but also it goes around Valley Oaks on the left-hand side, comes down here, and unites together, and then goes under Center Hill. The retention ponds we see there, we have concerns about the drainage from all those retentions. They're coming into that creek right there. That's coming right through Valley Oaks. So we want to meet with the attorney, these guys, and the civil engineers as they move along to make sure that we're comfortable with what's being developed, because water is very powerful, right? And if you don't address the problem up front, then you're going to have a hell of a cost downstream. So that's one of our concerns. I don't know if you, ladies and gentlemen, are familiar with Valley Oaks. It's 28 lots. There's 22 houses. Some people bought 2 lots, all right? These are all custom-built houses. Minimum square feet, 2,800. Average square feet in there is 3,600. So these are above normal houses. This development is, my understanding, is going to have maybe 3 tiers of housing in there, right? I mean, that's what I understand. All right. We're concerned with the houses butting up to our subdivision. We don't want a 1,200 square foot house butting up to our 3,800. It's going to devalue our property. That's our concern. And we'll be glad to meet with the developers, and we would like them to consider, because I know they got some large houses in there, of taking those and the ones that are going to butt up to our subdivision and put them there. And since this is development stage, I know that they can do it. So that's it. Thank you very much. And Brian, again, I'd like to meet.
Thank you, sir. I will just answer for him because he's in a unique position. He represents the board and the city. I'll commit 100% the engineer and his staff, and the developer can meet if he wants to, but it's really not a legal issue. It is an engineering issue, and we deal with retention water, stormwater runoff on a daily basis, and we'll make sure you get your help.
I'll give you my card.
Thank you. So, Thank you. Sir?
Thank you. My name is Chuck Hannaford. I live at 6283 Valley Oaks Drive West. And we have been meeting, one of our residents is an engineer we realize this is going to happen, and we appreciate, by the way, the concessions. We'd certainly like to be able to talk to them. One of our main concerns is the clear cutting of the neighborhood. My particular lot, the back of my house faces west, and I noticed on the plat plan that there are 4 or 5 homes there, and I know the Joneses came in, they're our neighbors, and they were able to, because of the drainage and the low area in the backyard, were able to get 3 homes kind of removed from that area. Our concern is we would just like to be able to have conversations as we go forward, understanding that this is a done deal, but we would like to retain as much of the beauty, because all of the stuff behind our homes, and the reason we bought in that neighborhood is because it's very secluded and there are woods behind us. And we would love to be able to talk about maybe not as many trees being taken down as perhaps were planned, or whatever we may be able to do to maybe gain some concessions and have those discussions. And so we, as an HOA and as a neighborhood, we've all been meeting, and we've consulted a great attorney who's explained to us this is a done deal. So we would just like to request that there is consideration for these conversations going forward.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I think that's very reasonable, and I just want to take one twist, and I heard the word done deal. I don't even get a vote. I'm neutral. I hadn't voted in 3.5 years. I've been waiting on the opportunity, but I'm a tiebreaker. But I want to just flip it just
I'd like to persuade you to vote in maybe a different direction.
I want to flip it just a little bit and say, yeah, 24, 26 years is a long time. But what if you, for whatever reason, bought a piece of property, you want to finish working somewhere, you want to finish a career, and now 25 or 30 years later, you're ready to build your dream home, and you come to the city and we say, you can't do that. And you say, well, I could when I bought it 30 years ago, and we say, no, you can't do it, then you'd be really angry. So all landowners have a right, and that's part of it, that once it's approved by that other entity, then we're not allowed just to flip it arbitrarily to make it something else. But I think you have a developer and that'll work with you. He's already proven it earlier this week. And how would they, we'll take the vote in a minute, how would they contact, or who would they contact to have a seat at the table and try to give some input?
I can give y'all my card before y'all leave.
Okay.
I'll be glad to give the ones that are here after the meeting as well.
Thank you.
Give them my card and anything, any concessions we can make. Can't make any promises. We'll
Understood.
work with y'all. I mean, we want to be good neighbors as well.
And that has shown, I would wish every proposed development was that smooth. So thank you very much for sharing your input. Board, do you have any questions?
I got
Okay.
I want to ask the developer, could you come back up just a second? I want to commend y'all. It sounded like they congratulate you also. But on the west side of theirs, where he lives, I noticed you gave up 3 lots on the north side. Is it a reason you couldn't eliminate, say, 2 or 3 lots right there?
So that's actually kind of the crest so our lots were gonna be higher than their lots, and so we were worried about a drainage problem there. And we were able to relocate those lots within the same area. Cause granted, we're working within that same area of the PUD, trying, to fit the requirements that were set forth by that. And so we were able to relocate those lots, but we need the rest of that room for detention, so we're not able to move any other lots that are around that area. I don't have the plan with me, but I was going to look. I believe those lots that border that are the 2,200 square foot lots, if I remember right.
They
I don't want to
look-
swear to
they look
that, but,
Small, yeah, I can't quite tell.
well, I meant square foot houses is what I meant by that. I think they are some of the larger lots in the subdivision.
I know as a developer, or whatever, nobody wants to give up any lots, but I was just thinking that would relieve some of their concerns also right there, just those 3 lots right there on that west side. I mean, I don't know if you can put them like you did the other one, move it around some and just eliminate those 3. But that was the west side where he thought he lives.
Well, per my engineer, and like I said, those were the only lots we were able to move and able to not lose any lots. And honestly, at this point, losing any lots is a big financial burden for me, losing 64 already.
Alderman, if
Yeah, go ahead.
I may throw some light on that particular area, that is area 6. Those lots are in area 6. The minimum lot size approved in the project text for that particular area is 15,000 square feet, 12,000 square feet. Sorry. The minimum lot size approved in that area, but what they have is larger than that. The minimum house size required in that particular area is 18,000 square feet. 1,800 square feet.
1,800.
We like that. Go ahead.
I like the 18.
You go, Mr. McBride.
1,800 square feet.
We're gonna price
And
a lot of people out.
that excludes porches, garages, and basements.
Right, that's heated.
And I'll be glad to get with the residents, and I'll look at and see if a
Well,
bigger size square footage house will fit on those lots. We would make that, we would do that so that we didn't affect them in any way.
well, I mean.
And I do wanna say that, you know, these houses that are gonna be built there will be sold for $170 a square foot, so I feel like $170 to $175 a square foot, so I feel like what we're gonna build is gonna do nothing but increase their value, overall.
Well, it is, but it does squeeze up against them and stuff. And 1,800 square feet is, like he said, if there's 3,800. Yeah. But that's one I was hoping you can do something right there, like you did on the north side. 'Cause okay. You're saying you can't do it, right?
I can't do away with lots, and I don't know that we can reconfigure and pick up those lots anywhere else. I would have to get an engineer to look at that.
That's right. But we
Okay.
could look at increasing those houses on those lots to
Yeah.
be closer to the adjacent property. So instead of doing 18,
I could go ahead and say tonight that those lots that back up to Valley Oaks, I would do 2,200 square foot minimums on those lots that border them. And we can make that a part of the approval so that at least they're of the bigger, now that's not with the PUD, so I don't know how that works as far as the approval goes.
That would be 2,200 heated, right?
Correct.
Anything else, boys?
Thank you.
absolutely.
Mayor Adams, I do have one procedural question.
Mhm.
Whoever makes a motion, if it were to be motioned and passed, item number 12 that was added regarding, we don't have that in our package.
Okay.
So does that need to be part of a motion, or is that assumed based on the updated report that would be in there?
And I don't want to be presumptuous as to how the board may want to vote. If a board member were inclined to approve this, a motion to approve as presented by planning staff would be appropriate.
Okay.
And the 2,200 square foot minimum on the,
Typically, that's something that's rolled into a project text approval, which is not before the board tonight. My recommendation would be that if the developer commits to that, that be rolled in a song, likely as a plat note on the final plat.
Final plan.
okay,
That you would have on the notes section of a final plat, a note about house square footage on particular lot numbers. And that rather than that being a condition of approval tonight, that be something that's reflected on a final plat. I think procedurally would be the better way to reflect that approval.
in the project text of the final plat.
That's right.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, or motions?
I'll make that motion to go ahead and approve it as presented, including the whole 12 items on the planning staff.
Motion by Mr. Dickerson to approve as presented, items 1 through 12 included, and second by Mr. Wallace. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you to the developer and the residents for working together, and very much appreciated. Item number 2, public hearing date for consideration and action on motion declaring the conditioning of the following properties to be a menace to the public health and safety, and directing either the city staff or contract labor to clean the property forthwith. Really only one other property remaining. Is anyone here on behalf of the Kid Jarrett and Jessica property on Quail Road? The board may recall this is a property that the house has been taken down. It's been demolished, and there have been pending criminal charge at some point for at least one of the parties there, and this has been cut a couple times by the city and is in need of cutting again at the end of Quail Road near Dupree.
Mayor, I did have some news to report. Our code officer was able today to track down the new owner of the property. It's no longer the kids.
Good.
And the owner did suggest that he has had a couple people lined up to cut it. They haven't shown up, but anyway, it appears that he's been connected with someone that does regular mowing for the city, so we feel pretty confident based on those conversations today that this will get done. I don't know if that means that you need to table it, or you know, that would be up to the board. But
It either needs to be, Mayor, it needs to either be tabled or no action, because if there's a new owner, that means that there could be a deficiency with notice, legal notice. Actual notice is there because he's been contacted, but legal notice may be insufficient based on the new ownership. So tabling or no action altogether would be the preferable actions.
Just because Mr. Gambone's a detective and could find him, that doesn't mean everybody may be able to find the new property owner.
that was Officer Shanda Ruff who was
got you.
able to track it down today.
I would recommend no action, but whatever the board wants to do, it'd give them a chance to clean it up, and hopefully we don't have to find them and notice them anyway.
Let's go ahead and table it to the next meeting.
Okay.
In case something doesn't happen.
Gotcha.
And then we'll already have it on the agenda, but that should
Okay.
take care of the.
Motion to table it.
to the next meeting.
Next meeting, second by Mr. Wallace. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Old business, public hearing date for budget hearing to provide the general public with an opportunity to comment on the taxing and spending plan incorporated in the proposed budget for the City of Olive Branch for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2024 and ending September the 30th, 2025. This is a public hearing date. If any comments wish to be made while that's being looked at, I will just make a couple comments for the board about the budget. We had the special call planning meeting, so you're probably very familiar with it. The good part is, and congratulations to the board for, I guess, 10th year, no millage increase, no millage or property tax increase for 10 years in a row. Stays the lowest in the county at 38.5 mills, which is quite a lift, quite a task, being able to do that with all the things that the city does. We have what is thought to be, about the people who have been here a while, the largest cost of living adjustment in the history of the city for our employees, 5% cost of living adjustment for full-time employees and 2% for part-time employees. That's a very positive thing to do. We want to retain and keep our employees. Not even going to venture into what inflation's done with that 5% over the last year, but I'm very pleased that the board is looking to consider to pass that. Basically, we reduced requests from a capital standpoint. We reduced our positions requested by 12 down to 3. The different departments and the department heads did an awesome job by trying to keep expenditures down. But this budget does include $4 million in paving. It includes what we need to, our part of the 6 pickleball courts and the restroom to be constructed at the city park. It also includes a bond of $3.5 million paid for by the 1% hotel motel lodging tax to grow our soccer complex to 2 more lighted fields, as well as 2 unlighted practice fields, a combined concession and bathroom building, sidewalks, landscaping, and what the public certainly needs, or what our friends and residents need, 405 extra parking spaces at that facility. Any questions about the budget? Thanks to all that, as we worked a couple weeks ago, I guess, or a week ago, seems like a couple weeks, for making it happen. But any questions? Hearing none, any motions?
Mayor, there's no action required.
Okay, any public want to comment on this particular budget? Can I get an amen from at least our departments? Mr. Berkeley, anything to add to this? You okay with it? All right. Well, nothing's required then, so go forward.
September 3rd.
Finale on September the 3rd. Okay. Consideration of bids opened on August the 12th, 2024 for natural gas supplies and wastewater supplies.
Request is to table that.
Okay, table this particular item. Mr. Wallace, is a motion, second by who? Mr. Earhart? Oh, Mr. Collins, right beside me. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Also request to table item number 3, consideration of bids opened August the 12th for our Public Works Complex. Do we want to table that to date certain or?
Well, tabling it to September 3rd.
Okay. Mr. Collins, motion. Second, Ms. Hamilton. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Mayor, may I mention one thing? Just board for FYI, in your brown folders tonight, you had a memo from me in regard to old business number 3, and I would just direct that to your attention for later reading.
Thank you. Is there a motion to leave regular session to? Oh, let's do the new business. Item 1, consideration of recommendation to approve facility use agreement from Light the Way Ministries. This is the Contemporary Christian Concert, and this would be on July the 4th and July the 5th, and with our fireworks show on July the 4th, not on July the 5th, one large fireworks show on July the 4th. Mr. Collins, motion. Second, Ms. Henderson. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item 2, consideration of recommendation to approve task orders from Neil Schaefer Incorporated for scope of environmental investigation services for water and sewer extensions as follows. Task order A, B, C, and D, and I'll let Mr. Swims elaborate on those, if you will.
Yes, sir. All these are pertaining to the environmental portion of the water and sewer projects that we're doing. You can see on there that it's south area of 1, 2, and 3 projects and east area 1. So that's basically permitting through the core cultural resources. A lot of the things that we have to do as a part of these projects when they're done using federal dollars. And so these are lump sum projects, and I recommend that we move forward with each of these task orders.
Aye.
Yes, sir. This is just our first project that we've got underway. We've just had our recent meeting to begin construction, so we are starting the South Area 1 construction, and this is the construction services associated that with Neil Schaefer for $338,350, and I do recommend that we approve this amount for this service for them.
Thank you. Questions or motions?
Make a motion to approve.
Mr. Earhart, motion to approve. Is there a second? Second, Ms. Aldridge. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. Item 4, consideration of approval of resolution authorizing the employment of an independent registered municipal advisor in connection with the issuance of general obligation bonds for various capital parks and recreational improvement projects and for related purposes.
Mayor, both of the items, number 4 and number 5, are related to one another. These are 2 steps that are required for the issuance of bonds using the proceeds of the hotel motel sales tax. The proceeds of the bonds would be used for park improvements. The resolutions reference the issuance of bonds not to exceed $3.8 million Jason, the deposit to the project fund would be anticipated to be what, about 3.2?
3.5.
3.5? I'm sorry?
Estimated premium, so.
Gotcha. So it'd be about 3.5 to 3.6 million deposited to the project fund upon the issuance of bonds. The two actions, number one, you have a municipal advisor is required if you go through the development bank. And then also that individual, we've used government services and Nick Shore, who helped us with the last couple of bond issues, helps work with loading it and amortization and things of that nature, provides assistance to the CFO for that purpose. Item 5 is the actual resolution declaring the intent to issue the bonds. This is the first step in the process, and you would see later resolutions authorizing and directing the sale and so forth later this fall. But these would be the first two steps. Mayor, if the board's inclined to approve these, I would recommend that the board take action on them one at a time.
Okay.
Have separate votes on these resolutions.
Thank
I'll
you.
be glad to answer any questions the board may have.
Questions or motions on number 4?
Motion to approve.
Mr. Dickerson, motion to approve. Is there a second? Second, Mr. Collins. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Item 5, any questions or motions?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Mr. Wallace. Is there a second? Second, Ms. Henderson. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Now, is there a motion to take us out of regular session and go into executive session to discuss items 1 through 9?
So moved.
Mr. Collins, motion. Second, Mr. Earhart. All in favor? All opposed, motion carries. Is there a motion to go into executive session to discuss personnel matter in the dispatch department, personnel matter in the engineering department, personnel matters in the fire department, personnel matter in the gas billing department, personnel matter in the gas maintenance department, personnel matter in the IT department, personnel matters in the police department, personnel matters in the street department, and to discuss economic development under Mississippi Code annotated section 25417-4J. Is there a motion to go in executive session to discuss those items? Mr. Wallace, motion. Second, Ms. Aldridge. Is there any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? We are in executive session.